All right, let's get started. Thank you all so much for coming to the UCLA Cares About Anxiety webinar series today. And usually for the webinar series, we get experts on different topics around around childhood anxiety disorders. But today is kind of a special webinar because it is presented by the CARES Youth Collective, and they will be speaking about social media and how teens can get the best out of it and avoid the worst. And the Youth Collective is really a dedicated group of high school, college, and recent graduates. And they are really important for us at CARES because they create content that can be easily accessed by youth. So they create social media content, they create blog posts, they've hosted listening sessions with youth. And so they create a lot of really important content that we can then use directed at teens and young people specifically. And so this webinar is presented by 3 of our students. The first presenter is Payton. Payton Ward is a recent UCLA psychology graduate, and he hopes to pursue a PhD in clinical psychology, and specifically wants to expand equitable access to adolescent mental health services. Then we have Olivia Croley, and she is a junior at UCLA, and she would also like to pursue a PhD in clinical psychology, and specifically wants to conduct a little bit more research while she's finishing her undergrad. And our last presenter is Leah Lee, and she is a recent UCLA psychology graduate, and she would like to pursue PhD in clinical or developmental psychology with the goal of becoming a child clinical therapist. I'm really excited about this webinar. They have done a lot of great research on the benefits of social media use, the drawbacks of social media use, and how we can protect ourselves from the negative sides of social media, and also how we can kind of get the best out of social media use. So I'm going to pass it on to Payton, who's going to start us off.
Thank you, Anna, and hello, everyone. So we're going to jump right in with social media. So social media, it's been a topic of much discussion, sometimes controversy in recent years, and not without good reason. As advanced technology becomes more widely available, more components of our lives have moved on to virtual and online spaces. Even before the pandemic, it was hardly uncommon for students at school to learn, complete assignments, and interact with peers and instructors, all using online platforms. Indeed, data collected in 2018 reported that nearly all teens had access to a smartphone, whether that be their own, a parent's, or a friend's, and almost half said that they were online near constantly. And remember that this is from before the pandemic. So these numbers are likely to be even higher now, considering how much of many teens' social and academic lives have had to transition online over the last couple of years. And while these may seem like striking numbers, again, consider simply how much of daily life is carried out in the virtual world. Most of our news and information is consumed online. Many of our jobs can be conducted online. Our classes can be taken online. And most relevant to this presentation, our social interactions can occur entirely virtually. With how much of teens' lives occur online across these social media platforms, it's worth wondering about the impact of this emerging reality. So it's first important to note that the online behaviors of teens differ from other age groups in terms of the platforms they use and the frequency with which they use them. Over 90% of teens report using social media, which is more than any other age group. The general trend is that social media use decreases with age. In addition to how much teens use social media, the chart here demonstrates how they tend to use different platforms in higher age categories. They stand out for their use of Snapchat, for Instagram, and TikTok in particular, which are comparatively not as popular for older users. Most of the platforms commonly used by teens involve the sharing of thoughts, pictures, and videos between users, with some mechanisms by which people can like or comment on content, In addition to publicly posting content, some also provide means of communication between individuals via direct messaging, or they can also be sources of information or news. So, knowing what social media sites are most commonly used can also be helpful to understand how most teens use them. That is, what exactly are they posting? While every teen is, of course, their own individual and engagement habits can vary widely, the Pew Research Center found the following trends in the topics of teens' posts. The first most common are accomplishments, things that we have done or completed that we're proud of and we want to share with the world. The picture in this post, for instance, was taken after I went on a really tough hike. Second is family, exemplified in this post, wishing my dad a happy birthday. And the next most common are emotions and feelings, such as in this last post where I expressed my excitement at seeing a famous Van Gogh painting in person. These are some of the most common topics, but there are likewise less commonly posted ones, these being political and religious beliefs. So, considering the sheer ubiquity of social media among teens, there of course arises a question as to whether it's good or bad. The answer to this question, however, with many things, is not so clear. As far as teens' own opinions on the matter, some say it's mostly positive. Fewer say it's mostly negative, but most don't believe strongly one way or the other. And from what the data has so far shown, this assessment is likely accurate. There are many ways in which social media can influence teens' mental health, some of which are beneficial, while others are more detrimental. And as we will see, what you get out of social media largely depends on how you use it.
So, how we use social media and whether or not we come to view it as good or bad is largely dependent on how we use our social media platforms and what our actual intentions are. And this brings me to the topic of mindfulness and how we can come to view social media as a rewarding and beneficial outlet rather than a source of negativity. So, mindfulness, it can be defined as being fully present, where we are intentionally attending to our thoughts, feelings, and actions. And while using social media, it's really essential to remain mindful of how our interactions and our actions online could directly or indirectly affect ourselves and others. When we're being mindful, we're not judging our actions or the actions and thoughts of others, but instead we are observing them from a neutral and non judgmental standpoint. So, why should you even care about social media use or even want to be mindful about it? Well, even though social media can be seen as a form of mindless or harmless entertainment with no real consequences, we should work to be more mindful of the different ways that we interact with social media and how it can affect us. Even while viewing appropriate content, our social media use can still negatively impact our mental health. Viewing upsetting or triggering content can lead to feelings of exclusion, insecurity, jealousy, sadness. And research has found that these feelings that stem from social media can be associated with later symptoms of depression or worsening mental health. Being mindful of social media usage can also help to avoid the negative effects from social media, such as cyberbullying, triggering or upsetting content, scammers, or other types of content online that might negatively impact us while viewing. With current technology and software, there's nowadays a barrage of excellently photoshopped photos of models or social media influencers and other fake or manipulated news that could be readily accepted as true if one is not mindful. Um, for example, as you can see on the screen, it's pretty common for people to get into online arguments or fights, which could escalate to extreme proportions. Especially on Twitter, for example, users can tend to get aggressive or leave hateful comments, but this is just an example of a more tame fight. Also, recent pop culture examples of negative effects could include the Tinder swindler, if y'all have heard of him. This was just a man who posted pictures on Instagram and Tinder that depicted a super rich, luxurious lifestyle. But really, all of his social media photos were just excellently photoshopped or fake. But he was actually able to convince a bunch of women to send him large sums of money by claiming that he was like a wealthy diamond mogul. So just another example of the negative effects of social media. Lastly, being present about one's social media usage can also help to maximize the mental and emotional rewards that can be gained from social media. Social media doesn't have to just serve as a source of viewing entertainment, but it can also be used as a tool to help grow your own voice or find online communities. Mindfully creating and posting any type of content, whether it be just a single video or a comment on someone else's post, could help attract a community that also holds similar values to yourself. Intentionally and mindfully using social media and expressing yourself authentically online can help you gain the most from your social media platforms. So now I'm going to go into some non-mindful examples of social media use. So when not using social media mindfully, it can be really common for individuals to engage in certain behaviors that might harm the participant. For example, passive scrolling or just mindlessly scrolling on social media or TikTok without paying real attention to the content could lead to addiction or even dependency on one's phone. Passively scrolling also prevents real interaction with the content we're viewing, and it only serves as a form of a mindless distraction. Another example of less mindful usage is when we don't interact with our followers or others' posts. When we do interact with people's posts, we're not only indicating that the other person is someone that we value or that we like their content, but it could also help facilitate a new friendship or other opportunities with that person. I mean, social media can give us the freedom and the ability to control our social media content how we want it, and we can have the opportunity to access so much information. So by not interacting, we're really doing ourselves a disservice by limiting what resources we have online, but it could also encourage disconnection or distance from our followers. Another example of less mindful social media usage is just spending excessive amounts of times on social media or on our phones. When we're spending excessive amounts of time, we're really just spending all of our time processing floods of content and ignoring other aspects of our daily lives or other things that we need to attend to. Also, when we choose to interact with negative posts and we're not mindful of our online behavior, we could be indirectly supporting hatred, racism, sexism, homophobia. And it's really important that we remain mindful of who we are following and what type of content they promote and what their character is like. So we're not inadvertently supporting someone who creates negative or harmful content. And lastly, another less mindful example of social media use is using it as a conduit for validation from others. So when we are posting content for validation or just for likes, it can be really damaging to our self-image, our self-worth, and just our overall self-esteem. The most common example of this can be reported feelings of insecurity or worthlessness and depression when women compare themselves to unrealistic beauty standards or body standards that are seen online.
Okay, so what exactly are some of the more like personal, specific consequences of social media when it isn't used in a mindful way? So the foremost issue with many social media sites is that of comparison. Teens on social media see a constant stream of posts from their friends and other accounts they follow. And as we talked about earlier, teens most frequently post about things that are positive to them, like their accomplishments, families, or friends. These sorts of posts make the user posting them appear successful, popular, etc. And this then creates a curated image of the person that may not be entirely accurate to their day-to-day reality. When scrolling through social media, it can be difficult to see these positive images of your peers without comparing yourself to them. As you make comparisons like this, because almost all that we see is positive, you may find that you feel worse about yourself and potentially experience envy of those that you see. It doesn't help that many popular social media platforms have built-in measures by which content is judged, often in the form of likes, comments, shares, views, other such things like that. The quote unquote good posts get lots of these, while the bad posts get fewer. And popular people have lots of followers. These mechanics provide simplified numerical means by which to compare yourself to others. And the resultant environment of constant comparison has led many teens to report feeling pressured to achieve high numbers. Recently, a lot of discourse has arisen surrounding the implications of these features, which has led Instagram, for example, to introduce the option to remove the number of likes from being visible on a given post. And from the perspective of teens themselves, the most common complaint about social media is the drama present. On platforms like Twitter and in the comments of other platforms, it's not uncommon for arguments to occur publicly between two or more users, like we saw earlier with Old Spice and Taco Bell. For some, exposure to sometimes constant drama can be a significant source of negativity and has led many to report that they occasionally feel overwhelmed by it, some even setting aside social media entirely because of it. So interestingly, with social media's infinite potential to connect us with seemingly infinite people, it doesn't always bring us together. To you, seeing a large group online about a topic of interest might make you feel more a part of that community, more welcomed, more sure of yourself, while to me, that very same situation might leave me feeling alienated, alone, and unsure of myself. And as we'll discuss shortly, this multitude of diverse perspectives that's available on social media platforms, they can inspire and broaden horizons, but they can also be limited. Through features such as blocking or unfollowing, it's become easy to ignore content or viewpoints that you disagree with. This can make it difficult to take advantage of the exploratory possibilities of social media, and in some cases can create what are called echo chambers, where you only see similar views to your own, therefore limiting your perception of issues and people as a whole. But that being said, these functions of blocking and unfollowing can also be useful tools in counteracting some of the more negative impacts of social media, and we'll discuss that a little more later. So with the negatives in mind, we're now going to begin taking a look at how you can get the most out of social media and what exactly its more beneficial aspects are.
Okay, so now I'm going to highlight some ways to mindfully use social media that can help facilitate a more rewarding and positive experience on our social media platforms. The first example of mindful social media behavior is sharing the reality of what you're actually going through instead of trying to hide or conceal it. So when we authentically share the truth about how we feel and remain authentic to what we actually want to post, then we're helping to break up the endless reel of photoshopped and face-tuned pictures that people commonly post on social media. I think it's especially valuable when large social media influencers or YouTubers like Emma Chamberlain, if any of y'all have heard of her or watch her, show what they're actually dealing with instead of perpetuating this idea that their life is always perfect. You can also see from the other example on the screen that it can mean a lot when people are honest and accurately present their experiences, as it could go on to help someone else. So when we make the choice to be mindful and authentically share these experiences and lessons, we're promoting a healthy and genuine platform with content that will attract the right types of people. Sharing our experiences can even inspire or show our other followers that it's okay to be yourself online. I think it's especially important to mindfully and thoughtfully talk about really important concepts nowadays like sexuality and mental health. As you can see in these 2 YouTube clips, these women make videos discussing their mental health and their experiences with coming out. And it can be really comforting and inspiring for some people to see others speak so openly about experiences like that when they themselves might be struggling with it. Coming out to others or revealing to others around you that you've been feeling really depressed, these can be really difficult tasks. And it can be nice to see others who want to share those experiences or who can even help empathize with you. It's especially important to show on social media, where people frequently conceal their mistakes or less than perfect reality, that it's okay to be vulnerable. Another example is being more aware of what we share on social media. So when we go to scroll on TikTok or Instagram, we should consider how any potential content we create, whether that just be leaving a comment or posting a picture or sharing the post to our other followers, and we're thinking about how that could affect others, even indirectly. And this chart is just an example of some questions that you could ask yourself before posting online, such as, is this true? Is my comment helpful? Is my post inspiring? Is what I have to say necessary for the audience I'm trying to reach, or is it kind? Another example of mindful social media use is learning how to interact with your followers. So when we do this, we can come to view that other person as more than just a follower or a number in our following, but an actual person behind the screen who we have the potential to befriend. So interacting with our followers could even lead to more opportunities for us, such as making a new friend or maybe receiving a job offer that you previously might not have gotten, or PR for your craft or your hobby. We could easily utilize our social media platforms to give us more opportunities to meet our mutual followers or develop real friendships outside of the screen. Online platforms provide us with a super modern and easily accessible way to connect with literally thousands of other people across the globe. So we should try to take advantage of this to create friendships that we might have not been able to create through only in-person interactions. Lastly, another good example of mindful behavior on social media is when you choose to not compare yourself to anyone else on social media. I know with social media nowadays, it can really seem like a game of comparison and who can get the most likes, but making the mindful decision to celebrate and interact with other posts without reflecting on our own image or how the likes can make someone else's image be perceived, that can help create a more positive online environment instead of one fueled by insecurity, jealousy, or judgment.
So while social media can, in some cases, lead us to become disconnected from others, when used positively and mindfully, it's actually super useful for its ability to form connections and expand an individual's social network. Unlike the real world, we can connect with countless individuals in unprecedented time, completely unbounded by our geographic limitations. It's never been easier for us to maintain a large social network. In addition to helping develop a great number of social connections, most teens also say that social media helps to deepen their existing relationships and ultimately makes them feel more connected and included with the people and groups that are important to them. So the second beneficial function of social media is its ability to aid in the growth of the individual, both on a social and a personal level. From a developmental perspective, the teenage years are the period where a person's primary question is, who am I? And this question is answered through time spent exploring and questioning and experiencing. Different social media sites can provide spaces for communities to grow around topics of interest. Examples being things like Facebook groups or subreddits. We can engage with others who share our same passions, exchanging ideas, or just supporting one another and bonding over a shared interest. As teens explore the countless possibilities that will come to define how they fit in society, it's never been easier to get involved with new things. And on a personal level, social media sites provide no shortage of opportunities for self-expression. Users can post their artwork, their writing, or just make their opinions known. At the same time, the opinions and creative works of others can be an endless source of inspiration. The ease with which it's possible to explore new ideas provides opportunity for diverse perspectives that helps teens decide what they believe and ultimately who they are. So looking at the big picture, there appears to be a divide in experiences, as the data shows, where some find social media to be inclusive and helpful to their self-image, while others report the exact opposite. And so according to the data, it appears that teens more frequently have positive experiences with social media than negative, with folks saying that it makes them feel included, confident, authentic, and outgoing 2 to 3 times as often as the inverse. And this pattern continues with the specific positive and negative effects that we have covered. These positive feelings of connection with your friends or creative expression are reported around twice as much as the primary negative feelings. However, as shown in these charts, the number of teens reporting negative experiences is by no means insignificant. For many, the constant comparisons and exposure to drama can make social media seem to carry an unavoidable weight of self-consciousness or anxiety. Specific strategies can be necessary to counter the negatives of social media and ensure that our experiences connecting with each other are ultimately enriching to our social and mental health.
Moving on to social media management skills, here's some ways to combat social media manipulative negative effects and stay hydrated with your positive, uplifting emotions before, during, and after using social media. So first and foremost, before going on social media, think about your feelings about toxic effects of social media, such as anxiety, frustrations, and even stress. With the distant connections due to COVID-19, recent research has clearly underlined that social media and anxiety goes hand in hand more than any time ever, with the increased screen time exacerbating feeling of anxiousness. So you can navigate your intense emotions without getting lost using this feeling chart on your left of the slides. So first, call the situations to mind and see if you can feel the stress and emotional discomfort in your body. Some situations can be derived from our worries, which comes from not being invited to a social event with your peers, a post from friends who got a better college admission offer, insecurity about attaining a picture-perfect body image, or even feeling replaceable if you do not reply to your friends' posts or pictures quickly or effusively enough. Then distinguish and name the type of emotions in the chart. For instance, when you're stressed and being overwhelmed by feeling left out from your peers, discover what your primary emotions are that you're feeling at the present moment. It can be labeled as sad, anxious, or even insecure, depending on how you view the situations. With this feeling chart, you can visualize your emotions and understand which combinations of emotions created an emotional disturbance. Likewise, it is very crucial to understand its impact on conditions like anxiety and social loneliness to establish a healthier relationship with social media and ultimately prevent any digital stressors. Next, think before you click. Why are you on social media right now? What do you want to say, think, and feel while using it? Always pause and ask yourselves how you're feeling. Checking on your emotional state is a key to staying in control of your actions, emotions, and thoughts. Set a clear intention to your usage as well. Why are you going on social media right now? What do you want to think, feel, and entertain in doing so? Lastly, limit your social media usage as much as you can. Think about how much time you want to be on the social media and for what. After going on the social media, here's some suggestions for self-care and coping mechanism you can apply. First, practice self-compassion, where we can use social media more mindfully and cultivate our awareness. Both gratitude journals and meditation practice can help address some negative feelings you might have after spending too much time on social media. Research reported when we are too focused on the present, we are less likely to think about what might be on the social media right now. As such, meditation practice can help address some negative feelings after spending a lot of time on social media, bringing ourselves back to the moment. Another research highlights expressing gratitude in your daily life significantly improve your well-being, such as a satisfaction with life. As such, sharing kindness and being mindful support this positive shift, which help us to move forward from our distress and ultimately build resilience in our life. So why don't we grab a pencil and a journal to take a quiet pause on our daily busy thoughts and reflect more mindfully. Lastly, try out the embodied practice, such as sensory and physical practice. To quiet our distressing thoughts, we can going for a walk, being outdoor in general, practice your deep breathing, such as counting up to 10, drinking something warm or cool to silence our wearying thoughts, smell something good that helps you calm your big feelings, practice mindful yogas, or even create new things with your hands, such as art, craft, or cooking. These are some of the techniques that help you distract from what you're experiencing, such as unwanted, challenging emotions, and refocus on what is happening in the present moment. So with this knowledge, we can learn how to take mindful approach to social media, gaining greater control over our digital behaviors and feeling less controlled by them in our daily lives.
So when in your use of social media, you come across something that's particularly distressing or makes you feel particularly bad about yourself, it can be useful to have some more tools to respond with to these specific situations. So to this end, we'll go through some of the more common triggering experiences on social media and suggest ways to combat the negative feelings that might be associated. First of these is seeing an image depicting a perfect figure or ideal size when it comes to body standards. This can often trigger comparisons that might leave you feeling bad about yourself or envious. To handle these negative self-directed feelings, think about or write down a list of things that you value about yourself other than your appearance. Examples maybe being a good grade that you got, your capacity for empathy, maybe how creative you are. Also, ask yourself what your friends value about you. And remember when we talked about how blocking or unfollowing can be helpful? If you see things that don't make you feel good about yourself from other people, you have all the freedom in the world to simply unfollow them. Instead, follow people who emphasize a positive body image above looking perfect. And outside of social media, find a group of friends who value a healthy body and weight that you can interact with. For our concept of self-image is much more impacted by our peer groups than what we see on social media. Sometimes you might come across content that just makes you feel left out, whether that be your friends together without you, or just a large group of friends that you wish you had. In these situations, it can be useful to create a list of true friends or mentors you can contact at any time. When it comes to our relationships, research has shown that depth is often more impactful than breadth. So think of just one positive relationship you have and focus on how much that one relationship means to you. This can also be a great opportunity to practice being comfortable with yourself, being okay with not being included in everything. Some good activities might be going to a coffee shop and reading a book by yourself, or going and seeing a movie by yourself. And next, it's sometimes easy to get caught up in the popularity game of social media, how many likes or followers other people are getting. If this is something you find stresses you out, it's useful to put into perspective the real importance of these social media metrics. Does it really matter, for instance, that Ariana Grande has roughly 310 million more followers than me? Who's to say? But sometimes you have to take a break from social media and make a point to do something in the real world with a friend or a family member, and notice how much more impactful the experience was than what you see on social media. That being said, it's absolutely normal to compare your social media with others and to wish you had more likes or followers. It's how you're meant to feel with the way these platforms are designed. But most importantly, ask yourself if what you're posting is what you want to post, or if it's just what you think would get a lot of likes. Like we've said, practice self-compassion, approach social media with an attitude of mindfulness, and make sure that you're the one getting the most out of your own use. So finally, you may sometimes feel a pressure to be perfect, for that's what everyone else on social media seems to be, right? It's important to remember that our presence on social media is a curated image. The best parts of our lives we want others to know us by. This is true of all users on social media to some extent. Everyone else has ups and downs in their lives, the same as you, even if they don't make a post about it. If this becomes a significant source of stress, take some time to make a list of things that are unique to your life, that make you special and give your life value. Nobody is perfect, but we all have value in our lives and experiences. And I think this is perfectly illustrated in this picture, which you might recognize if you've seen X-Men First Class or are in tune with meme culture. The gist of it is that Michael Fassbender as Magneto is talking to Jennifer Lawrence, who's a shapeshifter, and says that he wants to see the real her. After shapeshifting a couple times, she finally reveals her weird blue scaly mutant self, to which he says perfection. So whether you are a weird blue scaly mutant Jennifer Lawrence or this silly dog licking its own nose, the closest you're ever going to get to being perfect is just being who you really are and seeking comfort in that. So switching gears now, while we've been talking about the experiences of teens on social media, we want to touch upon the roles that parents can play in enhancing their teens' use of such platforms. Parents of all figures have the most influence on the lives of children and adolescents, and thus they can help create boundaries for media use and serve as role models in their own behaviors. And for parents wanting to engage with or monitor their children's social media use, research has indicated that often the most effective strategies are described in what's called active mediation. Active mediation departs from more traditional strategies of imposing time and/or content restrictions in favor of parents simply maintaining communication with their children regarding their concerns around social media. The active part is what's key. The parent is engaged with the child and their social media behaviors, not in a removed or criticizing sense, but almost as if they were using it alongside their child. This can help parents find opportunities to discuss content, raise critical awareness, stimulate learning outcomes, or give explanations to improve online safety. As for what this specifically looks like, instead of just talking about what's good or bad about social media with your child, recommend good content for them to consume that you like or that you want them to see. Instead of imposing time restrictions on your child's technology use, talk with them about what you both believe to be healthy and agree upon some good boundaries. Instead of monitoring your child's technology use to ensure their safety, whether that be by asking them or checking their search history or social media logs, have a conversation with them about online safety and convey the importance of limiting online communication or information sharing. A more open dialogue allows for both parents and teens to express their desires and opinions, ensuring that everyone is heard and understood.
With all of that being said, we also thought that sometimes everyone might want to take a break from social media. And so here are some of the presenters' favorite things to do outside of social media. And so maybe you want to take a screenshot of it, or if you watch this back, you can get some inspiration of things that you might want to do, right? So things like putting on some music and just dancing for a little bit, making art, going out in nature, whether that's exploring a new neighborhood or just going for a walk, cooking or baking something new, listening to a podcast, more kind of unusual things like going and skipping some rocks or blowing some bubbles or visiting the local animal shelter, building something out of Legos, doing a puzzle. All of those things are great things to do to just take a moment away from social media. And so with that, we're at the end of the presentation. I really want to thank all of our presenters for their great work. This is all of the research that they've done. And we obviously want you to connect with us on social media as well. This is a webinar on social media use. So ideally, you would also follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, and we also now have a new YouTube channel where all of our webinars are going to be on, so including this one. So definitely check out our YouTube and subscribe to it as well. You can also check out our website where we share blog posts and handouts and other material for families, for teachers, for providers. And it includes some blog posts that the Youth Collective has written as well. If you want to do really old school, you can also send us an email. So with that, we're at the end of the webinar. So I want to just thank our presenters one more time. I think they've done an excellent job. And hopefully we'll see you at our next webinar next month, which we will advertise on all of our social media channels. All right, thank you all so much. And I hope to see you again very soon.